In this tutorial series, I'm going to teach you how to create your own graphical user interfaces for your Python 3 code by using the tkinter module. Hello humans, I'm Kyle and welcome to Code for Humans, the channel dedicated to leveling up your coding skills. I'm making this tkinter series because if you're here, you've probably shared a lot of the same frustrations I've had. If you go on Stack Overflow looking for tkinter help, you'll find that a lot of the code there no longer works. It's outdated because tkinter has been updated so many times, and that's why I wanted to make a fresh tkinter series for 2020. I'll show you how to write tkinter code that actually works, so with that said, let's jump in. So to start, what is tkinter? So tkinter is a Python module that allows us to create graphical user interfaces. It comes with your Python installation, and it allows us to create things like this. So this is a GUI I built using tkinter. So just a very basic like stock trading app, but that's not the important thing. What you need to know is that I can type in some information and then I can click some buttons and then certain actions will occur. So this is going to be our end goal. But for this video, I'm going to show you how do I create this window and then how do I write labels. So you can see a series of labels here. And then how do I place those labels? How do I tell tkinter where to actually place things on my window? So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is import tkinter. Since it comes with your Python installation, we don't need a pip install. We just need to say import tkinter and we're good to go. Then we need to actually make our tkinter process. And the way we do that is we give it a name, and I'll call it root because it's the root graphical user interface. And I'll set that equal to tkinter.tk. So effectively, root is like the computer process that controls our GUI. So we can do a couple things with this. First, we can say root.title, and now we can pass it a string, and this will be the title that appears at the top of our window. So I'll call this my first GUI. We can then set the dimension. How big do we want our window to be? So I'll say root.geometry. This is kind of dumb in my opinion, but we pass it a string with the dimensions. So I'll say I want it to be 400 pixels wide by 500 pixels tall. To create a label, we can say LBL title, and you don't have to call it this. This is just some name that I came up with. You can really name it like anything like potatoes or sweaty socks, whatever. And then we set that equal to tkinter.label. So here, label takes, it can take a lot of things, but the two important things are what GUI is this going on and what text should this label hold. So this is going on the only graphical user interface I have so far, which is root. And then the text is going to be equal to, I'll say, this is my title. So let's run this and see what happens. Before we do this, I'm going to do something a little weird. I'm going to say root.mainLoop. So mainLoop is used for handling events. It basically allows Python to tell when you've clicked a button or tell when you've updated something. But I'm going to put it here, even though we have no events, and that's just because it's good practice and it doesn't hurt anything. So remember to always put the name of your tkinter process .mainLoop at the end of your GUI code. Okay, so let's run this, and let's see what happens. So I get this little window to appear, and you can see that my first GUI is now my title, and it is longer than it is wide, so that's all looking good. But my label doesn't appear. Even though I created my label, it's not on my GUI, and that's because we didn't tell tkinter where to put it, so it just never placed it at all. So I'm going to show you 3 ways to do this, and they're going to vary in complexity. So starting with the easiest one, we can say LBL title dot pack. So before I get on to explaining pack, let me just explain what I'm doing with the naming convention. So personally, I find it easier to have the first like little prefix for your variable name to be equal to whatever type of interface element it is. So for labels, I say LBL. For text boxes, I say TXT. But this is just the convention that I found useful in my time with GUIs. Once you start having tons and tons of elements, it's useful to stay organized. So consider coming up with some type of format for yourself. But regardless, going back to pack. So pack says just shove this element, in this case, label title, shove it towards the top of my screen, wherever. Just as long as it's not overlapping with something that's already there, that's fine. So if we run this again, we'll see that this time our label does appear. It just gets shoved to the top as far up as it can go without overlapping something, so that's why it gets shoved right underneath the title bar. Pack is useful when you don't really care where things are going. You're not worried about being super neat and precise. You just want it to be on your screen somewhere. So pack is like a quick and dirty method. You can also give parameters to pack. So I can say side equals, let's say left. And if I run this, now it'll get shoved as far left as it can go without overlapping something else, like you see here. And alternatively, I can say side equals bottom. And if I run this, as you expect, now my text is at the bottom of my GUI. Okay, so what about when I do care where things go? What if I want to make my GUI look all nice and pretty? Well, we have a different placement function. So that is place. So place is super precise, but it takes a long time to set up and get looking nice, and I'll show you why. So we give it XY coordinates, and that's where the label will go. So I'll say x equals 20, y equals 50, and when I run this, I can see I've now gone down 50 pixels and to the right 20 pixels, and that's where I placed the top left corner of my label. So pack is the super quick and dirty but inaccurate way to place things. Place is a very precise but slow way to place things, so now I'll teach you about the middle ground. The middle ground is grid. So personally, I don't like grid. I've had a lot of issues with it in the past, but it basically breaks up your code into like a little like Excel grid almost. But basically, it allows us to say things like row equals 0 and column equals 0. And now, if we run this, it's going to appear in the first row and the first column, which let's just throw in another label real quick so you can actually see what other rows and columns look like. So I'm just going to copy and paste it from my notes. Here we have label subtitle, which is basically the exact same thing we did above, but now I'm going to say this is in the second row, and again, it's second because this is 0 indexed, but be in the row after row 0, and if I run this, you can see that subtitle was placed below this is my title, but that is how you use grid, place, and pack to position your elements within your GUI. As always, a big thank you for liking, subscribing, and ringing that bell. Comment below with suggestions for future videos, and I will see you in the next one.